Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. We've got an Olivia sighting. My name is Meredith. Thank you guys so much for being here. Today we're going to be going over every book I read this year, which is not that many compared to other booktubers. I like to joke that I represent the girlies that can't read that many books. I have a job, I have a life, friends that I hang out with, a family that I see. So the odds of me hitting even like 50 books a year is pretty low, let alone the like 100, 150 that some other people are getting into. But I do more video essays on this channel anyway, so it works out for me. Instead of talking about like 10 different books for 5 minutes each, I like to talk about one book for 2 hours. Not today. Today we're gonna be talking about many different books. More specifically, 33 of them. I read 33 books this year. That's pretty good for me. That's about in the average range. I would say I read between 20 and 40 books every year, so we're sitting right in that middle. Some of the books I read for the channel, others I read for fun. However, my list only goes up to 25. There are a few books I am still going to talk about them, but I didn't put them into the ranking for various reasons. It'll make sense when we get to those ones. I also read a few graphic novel series which log as multiple different books, but I just put them on the list as one because it made it easier to talk about. So we've only got a list up to 25, but I read 33 books this year, officially. As of filming this, I'll probably read at least one more by the actual end of the year. All right, enough preamble. Let's get started. Coming in hot at number 25, last on the list, bottom of the barrel, is The Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. I actually read this before I knew there was a movie version of this coming out this year. If you're new to this channel, I have been going through some young adult novels from my childhood and reading them and making video essay series on them. And I thought The Uglies might be a good series for me to revisit. I was incorrect. At the ripe age of 11 years old, I was not yet radicalized into feminism, and I didn't maybe understand some of the nuances required for a story like The Uglies, and so I loved this book. I loved this series. I just thought it was like an action and adventure story. I thought it was so good. Reread the first one as an adult, had some criticism. My main critique is kind of a spoiler, so I won't share it here, but in both my video about the book and about the horrific movie adaptation they made of it, I explain in depth why I feel that way. So if you are curious, both of those videos are available to you for your consumption. I don't know why I worded it like that. I'll link them, don't worry. But for the purposes of this video, I'll summarize it by saying worst on the list, last place. Oh, I forgot to mention. Quickly, I also just want to say, these are ranked in order of my pure enjoyment upon reading them. It's entirely vibes based. Some of you might disagree with the order I put some of these books in. I have some classics on here and they're not at the top. I have learned that that sort of thing tends to make people pretty angry on this website, so I just want to make it abundantly clear. I am not trying to judge their writing quality, their impact to the world, their impact to like society and literature at large. We're not talking about any of that. I ranked these in order of how much fun I had reading them and no other thought put to it whatsoever. So if that's gonna bother you, just click out of the video. In slot number 24, we have The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner. Now, this might be confusing. In my Short Second Life of Bree Tanner video, I did say that as a lifelong Twilight fan, I had some fun with this book because it was fun to read a more modern Twilight book. But when I sat down to make the list, this slot just felt right to me. I don't know how to explain that. This book is not that good. In hindsight, I think I just didn't want to be too much of a hater. I try not to be overly negative on this channel. I try not to overly judge the books that I read. And I try to remember the audience that they're for and what they're written for. And when I was reading The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner, there was a fun aspect to it in reading a new Twilight book, but the book itself bored me quite a bit. I talk about that at length in the video I made about it, but I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunities and there was just a bunch of time spent inside of the main character's head where she's just sitting there kind of watching events happen around her and she's not even really involved in them that heavily. I thought it kind of fell flat on what Stephenie Meyer said she wanted to do with it, and I also found it to be a little bit boring. So once the novelty wore off of it being a Twilight book I'd never read before, this slot felt right to me. I don't know, it doesn't feel like something that should go that high on my list upon reflection. But I made a video on that one too, so if you want more information on that, I will link it. of course. In spot 23, we have At First Spite. This book is in this slot not necessarily for its quality, but for a specific mistake it made that I think is detrimental to its overarching goal. At First Spite is marketed as a romance that touches on mental health struggles. Part of the selling point of the book was that the main girl in it experiences severe mental health, represented accurately to what severe mental health looks like, supposedly, allegedly. And the thing is, it's not my place to judge whether or not the representation was accurate because everybody's mental health experiences are drastically different. So I'm not sitting here telling you I don't think it was accurate because it didn't mirror my experience. In fact, I feel like this representation mirrored a lot more of my experience than other representations I've read. My issue with it was, there's a point in this book where the main girl's mental health deteriorates to a point. I don't know if this is a spoiler to say, so I'll give a spoiler warning because I'm really adamant about not doing spoilers. Quick trigger warning for discussions of suicide. The main girl's mental health deteriorates to the point where she's pretty much locked herself away, isolated herself from anybody else. She's not bathing, she's not really eating very many meals, and you know, it's severe mental health, severe depression, right? The main hero, okay, this is a spoiler. Let me be real with myself. Our hero breaks in her third-story window because he's worried about her. He is a doctor. He assesses her mental health. She, in her own like internal stream of consciousness at some point in this period of time, has a thought to herself that she doesn't want to die. She just wants to disappear. If she could just like poof out of existence, that would be her preference. And because she thinks of it in this way, the character in the moment somehow has the sentience, the awareness to think to herself, oh, well, at least I'm not suicidal. And then later when the hero breaks in the third-story window, like I said, he is a doctor, he assesses her, and also decides, upon knowing that she doesn't want to die, she just wants to disappear, that she is not suicidal and so she doesn't need to be hospitalized and that he can help her through this mental health crisis. Now, this helps us with the narrative, helps us with the romance, doesn't help us with the mental health representation, okay? I hate to break it to you, but that is suicidal ideation. Actually, the way that suicidal ideation shows up in most people is exactly like that, is wishing to just disappear as opposed to dying. Most people don't want to cause a whole bunch of, is a ruckus the right word to use? This is a really serious subject for me to be talking about in a goofy video, but most people do not want to cause pain to the people around them. That is why the thought that your friends and family would be better off without you is actually one of the most dangerous thoughts you can have, because a lot of times your friends and your family and the people that you know care about you end up becoming, I forget what the word they use is. It's like preventative something or other, but it's the thought of what it would do to them if you were to die that often can stop people from committing suicide. So it's a natural progression of that train of thought to, instead of wishing to die, to wish to just disappear, to wish you were never born, or to wish that you just didn't exist, to wish that you could just poof out of existence and that your friends and family's lives would continue on around you, because then your suffering would end, but you're not hurting anybody else in the process. This is actually literally out of a textbook suicidal ideation. So the fact that this author went out of her way to say this is not suicidal ideation, so this individual is not in danger despite the severity of this mental health crisis, I think it's not only like incorrect, but damaging to the point that I genuinely don't think anybody should read this book, especially not if you're looking to feel seen in your mental health crises, because it's gonna tell you not to go to a hospital when maybe you should. In my opinion, the main girl's mental health deteriorates to a point that she absolutely should have been hospitalized. She should have gone to a hospital, and I think that the author wanted to show severe mental health, but she wanted the doctor that was the romance hero to be the one to bring her out of the mental health crisis, as opposed to her getting help from mental health professionals. And that's damaging for its own reasons, because it brings in this idea of the perfect caretaker, right? And the idea that there's pressure on the people around you who love you to care for you when you're in that sort of severe mental health crisis, and that pressure should be on them as opposed to on professionals. Not good, not good on so many fronts, not good. And I was enjoying this book so much. I was actually enjoying it a lot, and I thought she was gonna go to a hospital, and I was like, damn, all right, we've got some real actual like severe mental health representation, and we're gonna see this girl go to a hospital, get the help she needs, and then have her romance at the end. And then that's not what happened, actually. And I'm terrified that somebody would read this and identify with some of the thoughts that the main girl was having and then think, oh, this isn't suicidal ideation, I guess I'm not in danger, and maybe not seek help when they should. So this one gets a -5. Honestly, I should have put it last. That's how much The Uglies pissed me off. And to any authors out there, you gotta be careful with this stuff. Like, you can't just say it's not suicidal ideation when it is. Like, you can't just put that in your book. You gotta be careful. These subjects are serious and people genuinely struggle with this stuff. And sometimes art can be the thing that makes you realize you need help. You can't just put a textbook example of someone with severe enough depression that they are experiencing suicidal ideation and then have them explicitly think to themselves and have a doctor character say it's not suicidal ideation when it is. Wrong. Bad. It's a no from me. It's a -5 out of 10. And I was rooting for you. I was enjoying this book. And then I got to that part and I was like, girl, what? You tell I feel strongly about that book. Anyway, coming in at number 22, we have New Moon. Now, I am ranking these in order of how much I enjoyed them upon my read, specifically this year. New Moon has always been my least favorite Twilight book. I'm not a Jacob girly. When I was a child, I reread all of the Twilight books so much. I never reread New Moon in any situation except for one. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you guys in my New Moon video, but for some reason, New Moon was one of the books that my family had in one of our bathrooms to be like the book you picked up if you were stuck in there a minute, you know, before smartphones. And so I would read New Moon in those situations, but never any other time. And I think it says something about how I feel about the book that the only times I reread it as a kid was when I was on the toilet. And I still feel that way about it as an adult. Not my favorite. I don't care about Jacob. Get him out of here. This is not a safe space for Jacob and Jacob alone. My team Jacob girlies, you guys are welcome here, but Jacob himself, he's gotta go. At number 21, we have Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I reread this in preparation for a new season of Bridgerton to come out, and I liked it. It was fine. So you might be wondering, why is it so low on the list? I didn't tell you guys this at the beginning of the video, but this was a really great reading year for me. I have a lot of books that I really, really enjoyed. Most of this video is going to be overwhelmingly positive. So a just okay book actually makes it into slot 21. It was fine. I had fun with it. I liked the book better than I liked the season of the TV show. I had read it once before, and when I read it before, it was one of the better Bridgerton novels, but the Bridgerton novels never really cracked into the 5-star range for me anyway. So having it be a reread and having it have been kind of like a 3.5 to 4 star the first time I read it made it kind of a meh read for this year, but not unenjoyable. Just average. At number 20, we have Breaking Dawn. I don't know, I'm torn about actually moving this one higher now that I'm sitting here. The thing about Breaking Dawn as a book is it is not good. Like, if I were judging it objectively, if I were judging it on its literary merit, of all of the Twilight books, I think it's objectively The Secret Life of Bray Tanner is the worst. And, you know, I started Life and Death, and that might be even worse. So to be fair, Breaking Dawn is the third worst, in my humble opinion. I love Twilight. So I couldn't put it down into the books that I like really, really didn't enjoy, because I'm always gonna enjoy reading one of the original 4 books of Twilight. I am, except for New Moon, unless I'm on the toilet. So it reminds me of the good old days when I was like in middle school, stuck on the toilet, and for some reason that book was in there. I don't know why. It was literally like we had like a thing, and it had like a book of crosswords. You could like do a crossword, and there was a pen, or there was New Moon. I don't know why. I have to ask my mom. But again, I'd like to reiterate, I am ranking these in order of how much I enjoyed them. So even though I think New Moon is better written than Breaking Dawn is, Breaking Dawn makes it higher on the list because I enjoyed it more. What can I say? I love that freak baby. I do. Wow. Now that I'm looking at this, I had so many great reads this year because I can't believe what's at number 19. I really enjoyed this. I read The Apothecary Diaries, Volume 3, specifically the light novels. With The Apothecary Diaries, there's the light novels, the manga, and the TV show, anime they call it. My friends are giant weebs, and they're trying to weebify me. And at first they were recommending shows to me that are just nothing like anything I watch that isn't anime or anything I read. And I wasn't enjoying them. And I was like, this is weird because anime is like such a wide range. I feel like I should be enjoying some of this. And then finally, one of my female friends recommended me The Apothecary Diaries, the TV show. Obsessed. It's adorable. Watch it. It's so cute. Obsessed to the point that I was like, I have to continue the story after the season ended. And I read Volume 3. Oh my God, Mau Mau. My heart. I honestly am looking at this and I'm like, I should really read volume 4. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I think I have it downloaded onto my Kindle. I just haven't read it. But it's really cute. The first season of the show spans the first 2 light novels, so I completely skipped those. And I just started at volume 3, and it sure enough like continued really nicely. I don't think I needed to read 1 and 2 having seen the show. I want to continue reading them. I just didn't have the time. So I am going to continue it. I highly recommend it. It's very, very cute. I should probably tell you what it's about. It takes place in ancient China. There's a palace, bunch of courtesans, and the main girl ends up working for the courtesans, but she's secretly an apothecary and really, really good with things like poisons and medicines and all that. And slowly they kind of discover that she's not only good at those things, but she's also good at solving mysteries. And it turns into a really cute like mystery solving show, but there's like a bit of a romance in the background. It's really cute. You should read it or watch it or both. That is all. That's why I'm like, wow, I had a really, really good reading year that's so far down the list, because I loved that show and I enjoyed the light novel. I thought it was pretty good. That's just a testament to how good a reading year I had. In slot number 18, we have Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Can I be so for real with you guys? I don't remember which Ali Hazelwood book this is. I can think of all 3 of the different ones that I've read, but I don't remember which one this is. Is this the one where it's like the hostile takeover. Okay. So she's like a scientist and he works for a business that's trying to do like a hostile takeover of the startup that she works for. Forbidden love, forbidden sex, hot, steamy, fun, good time, good ride, no complaints. If you like Ali Hazelwood, you would like it. If you don't like Ali Hazelwood, you wouldn't like it. I like Ali Hazelwood, so I liked it. And that's really all I have to say. At slot 17, we have Butter. Butter was such an interesting read for me because I read the first it's like a 500-page book. I read the first 250 of them, really liked them, was interested where the story was going, put the book down, didn't read it for 3 months, not really sure why. Genuinely to this day, don't know why. Picked it back up and finished it and thought the ending was good. I don't know. I don't know why I just took a 3-month break in the middle there. Not really sure. I don't read literary fiction that often. My only complaint about this book, truthfully, I feel like it was mismarketed. In the marketing, it really emphasizes the premise of the book, which is that you've got this woman who's in prison, but she's like appealing, I think, her conviction, but she's been convicted of killing multiple guys, but there wasn't really a ton of evidence that she killed them. Like she maybe like inadvertently killed them, but they all kind of died relating to her. And I'm not explaining this well, she's a good cook. And there's this reporter and she's trying to write a story on this lady. And so she starts cooking food like her to try and learn from her. And the whole thing has this like mystery, like horror kind of air when you like read all of that on the back of the book, where it's like, oh, and she starts to kind of like fall into this trap, you know, it's where you're like, oh, now that she's eating food that's made kind of in the same style as this lady used to make food, like what's gonna happen? And it kind of seems like it's gonna be like a mystery psychological thriller sort of situation. It's not. It's straight up like feminist literary fiction, which I love. I'm here for feminist literary fiction, so like no complaints on the actual like quality or content of the book. I just do feel like the marketing was a little bit off. So when I was looking at reviews afterwards, I saw a lot of people who gave it negative reviews just because it wasn't what they were expecting it to be. So if you were drawn to the idea of this book as a psychological thriller, it isn't that, unfortunately, but in my opinion, it is really good. It's just more about like feminism in Japan than it is about like mystery, horror, psychological thriller. Coming in at 16, we have the OG Twilight. Twilight, my love, my life, my everything. I'm always gonna enjoy reading Twilight, you guys. I am. I could pick it up right now and read it and enjoy it. And I had a lot of fun just reading it with a more like analytical view. I had a lot of fun analyzing it. I had fun making the video. It was a good time. If you're watching this, you most likely have an opinion on Twilight. You either like it or you don't. I don't know what more I have to say on it, but I enjoyed my reread of it. In slot number 15, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. You know, now that I'm reading this list out loud, I feel like this one got bumped up a few levels because I love Emily Henry. And I love Emily Henry's writing a lot. I do, unfortunately, think this is one of her, in my opinion. No, I don't even want to use the word worst because that feels mean. I do feel like this isn't her best work. work. And I'm a little concerned because I kind of felt that way about Happy Place. And so I hope she's not just kind of like resting on her laurels, if you will, and just kind of starting to like lazily write because she has a fan base, because her earlier work is so good. Beach Read is one of my favorite books. It means the world to me. I don't know that I'm ready to tell you why. We'll get there eventually. We'll get that close. But Beach Read is like one of those like top of the mountain, like peak books for me, just because of like my emotional attachment to it. And People We Meet on Vacation is such a like goofy, fun ride. And it's just like smutty and fun. I really liked Book Lovers. For some reason, other people didn't like Book Lovers that much. I don't know. But I felt like Happy Place was kind of a copy of People We Meet on Vacation. And then with Funny Story, I don't know. I thought it was fine, but it really should have gone on this list in the area of books that were like just fine, truthfully, which hurts me to say about an Emily Henry book. I'm gonna bump it a little bit down the list. She got so much flack for Beach Read, and I will never forgive you guys for that, because Beach Read is such a good book, and I feel like she's just afraid to do another more serious romance because y'all bullied her. But that's what she's good at, and I think she should do more of it. That is all. Okay, coming in at number 14 is The Great Gatsby. Pause. Remember when I told you this is about how much I enjoyed it, okay? I do not want to hear comments saying, I can't believe you put blah, 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 blah above The Great Gatsby. Get out of here. I don't care. This is about how much I enjoyed reading it, okay? The Great Gatsby is a obviously very famous work of fiction. I read it in preparation to watch both musical adaptations that existed at the time that I went to New York and then Boston to watch both shows. One of them doesn't exist anymore. The Art Gatsby got taken down. That surprised me. I thought it would make it to Broadway. My assumption is that they just didn't want to compete with the other Gatsby, so I don't know if they're going to bring it back around once the other Gatsby goes down, which a lot of Broadway fans think is going to happen when Jeremy Jordan and Evan Oblazada leave the show. We shall see. But what about the book? Very good. It's a classic. Very existential. Made me hate the ruling class, which, you know, is an emotion we need in the present day. I think it's prevalent. I think it's relevant to what's happening in the world right now. I think it's stood the test of time. It's The Great Gatsby. I don't really know what else to say about it. I enjoyed it. And it was number 14 on this list. Then number 13 was 1984. I'm sure this was some kind of subconscious thing. I put both of the classics I read together. Why did I read 1984? I don't want to tell you. You will find out. I've got content cooking. Okay, I've got content cooking, but 1984 was part of the content that's cooking. What is it with authors and just like putting manifestos into the middle of their books? I didn't remember that. I know I've read 1984 before, but I was like in high school, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know that I specifically remember that there was like a whole manifesto in there. If I'm being 100% true to how these reading experiences were, this one should have gone last because, oh my God, I read it in October. I don't know what I was thinking, you guys. I don't know why I did that to myself. But like leading up to the election, I was like reading 1984. That's a horror novel, not a literary fiction. It's not a classic. That is a horror novel. And it is the horror of our reality. But that didn't feel right. I mean, it's a good book. And when I say I like didn't enjoy reading, like, was it existential to read it? Yes. Was I a little bit serified reading it? Absolutely. But 13 is a good place for it on this list. Sometimes you need a book to evoke emotions in you that aren't pure joy. Coming in at number 12, we have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Turned out to be my personal least favorite of the Stormlight novels. In my opinion, this one drags a little bit. In fact, I'm not sure I would have continued the series if I didn't have so many friends who loved it so much. The ending was crazy though. I did really enjoy the ending of it. I just feel like we took so long to get there and so much of what it took to get there was so repetitive. But it still made it pretty high onto the list. So it's not that I'm saying it's a bad book or that I didn't enjoy reading it. I just do think it's my least favorite of the Stormlight books. If you're into high fantasy and you feel like reading a 1,200 page book, look no further. I found the book for you. It was good. I made extensive videos about these. So if you are curious about my in-depth thoughts about the Stormlight Archive series as a whole, I will link the playlist. At number 11, we have Eclipse. Eclipse has always been my favorite Twilight book, truthfully. And upon the reread, I still agree with that. I think it's the most action-packed. I think it's the most romance-packed. I don't think it's the best written. Believe it or not, I know you guys are gonna get mad at me for saying this. Twilight is the best written of those 4 books. Like, if you're talking about literary merit, it's the OG one. I'm sorry. The first Twilight is the best written of the 4. However, Eclipse is my personal favorite. Eclipse is the one I always enjoy reading the most, and upon this reread, that turned out to be true as well. So it gets the top slot of the Twilight books on this list, but it gets number 11 overall. At 10, we have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. Can I be so for real with you guys? Can I be so honest with you? This was like the 3rd book I read this year. I don't remember what it's about. I don't remember. I mean, I think there's like an assassin or something, and she has to kill someone, but then she like falls in love with him. I think. I don't know. It's by an author. Should have written down her name. I'm sorry. I don't have it on my list. But the author wrote these 2 other books that are way higher on my list. Bit of a spoiler. And I really enjoyed them. And immediately upon finishing them, I wanted to read more of what this author had written. And then I picked up this book. And I remember really enjoying it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as I enjoyed the original 2 that I read. Carissa Broadbent, that's her name. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as I enjoyed those, but I remember really enjoying it, but I couldn't in good conscience put it any higher, and I literally don't have any memory of it at all. I just remember that there was like an assassin and there's like vampires in the universe. I enjoyed it, and that's like what I remember about it. So it gets slot number 10. The next 3 books on the list are all Stormlight books. Words of Radiance, then Oathbringer, then Rhythm of War. I don't know why my enjoyment of them goes like chronologically in the order of the books. Not really sure why that is, but that is how I feel. In my opinion, The Way of Kings was my least favorite. Words of Radiance I thought was good. I thought it was better than The Way of Kings, and it made me want to keep reading. Then I read Oathbringer and I was like, whoa, that was really good. But Oathbringer didn't scare me the way Rhythm of War did. Like, there were moments in Rhythm of War where I was genuinely terrified for the characters in a way that I just wasn't during Oathbringer. I don't know what it was. So yeah, again, if you're looking for a series of 5 books that are 1,200 pages each, what is that? 12 times 5, 6,000. Oh my God. If you're looking for 6,000 pages of intense high fantasy, look no further. Do I have the recommendation for you? All jokes aside, I did really enjoy this series. I'm glad my friends convinced me to read them. I probably will continue in the Cosmere for fun. Jury's still out on if I'll make videos or not. We shall see. I'm playing it by ear. So those 3 are 9, 8, 7. At 6, we have Lore Olympus. I love Lore Olympus. A good friend of mine got me the first, what is it? I don't know what it's called. Volume? Maybe, is that the right word? It's a graphic novel series that, I know guys, I know, I'm sorry. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling. I'm sorry, I know we're tired of those. But this one's been going on for a really long time. It's a webtoon. You actually don't have to purchase the volumes to read it. All of the webtoons are free on webtoon.com. I don't know if that's the exact URL. If you look up Lore Olympus webtoon, you'll find it. And you can just read all of it, and you don't have to like buy the actual volumes of it. It's really cute. Read the trigger warnings, but it's really cute. My friend got me the first volume for Christmas a few years ago, and I've been keeping up with the volumes ever since. I do buy the volumes because I'm a bit of a book hoarder. What can I say? But it's really good. I highly recommend it. Definitely check it out if you get the chance. In the 4 slot, we have Wind and Truth. This is the 5th Stormlight Archives book. Now, I would like to reiterate, this list is based off of what I enjoyed the most. Wind and Truth might have been one of the most unique and fun reading experiences that I've had for a very long time. But some of that had to do with the fact that I have multiple friends who are reading it at the same time as me, and it's a book that just released. So there was a lot of hype around it, a lot of excitement about it, and I essentially buddy read it with like 3 different really good friends of mine. And I just don't get that experience that often. So it was really, really fun. And honestly, I'm sad I finished it. I want to go back to that. I want to go back to being in the middle and all have been like texting each other and like, oh, I'm at this part, and like, I don't know, it was just really fun. It was really fun and really great. And I love my friends. So admittedly, from like a reading experience perspective, this actually was my favorite reading experience of the year, but some of that didn't have to do with the book itself. So I tried to gauge my enjoyment of the book itself and just the content alone, and it ended up in slot number 4. In slot 3, we have Monstrous. This is another graphic novel series recommended by the same friend. The art in this is, oh my gosh, it is so pretty. You can literally just like stare at a page for like ever and ever and ever, but then you don't because the story's really good, so you're just like flipping through the pages. But then you think to yourself, this art's really pretty. I really should be looking more at the art. I should be appreciating the art, but then you're like, I want to know what happens. It's a battle, it's a war, but it's worth it. It's actually so good. I highly recommend it if you get the chance to read it. Next up at number 2, we have kind of a duo in one. I put The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King kind of just into one. I don't know why I didn't do that with the 3 Stormlight books. Whatever, doesn't matter. These are the 2 other books by Carissa Broadbent that I read. I read them both right at the beginning of the year. I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night on a whim. I was perusing Kindle Unlimited. It looked interesting. I picked it up, I read it, and it is my favorite romantasy. And I have to be very careful about how I say some of this and what I say here. I love romance. Favorite genre. Predominantly what I read, past tense, before I started this channel. I've been forced to change my reading habits a little bit since then. Love me a romance, okay? Love me a smutty romance. Love me a goofy romance. Love me a silly romance. And I love to have fun with my romance. I don't have to take myself too seriously. I can suspend my disbelief. I can allow for silly things to happen. But I get frustrated when I read too many romances in a row that are like that because I like variety. Apparently, hot take, romance is a genre that can be written really well. Haters of the genre would say that's not true, but for some reason, lovers of the genre sometimes say that's not true either. There's a time and a place for every type of romance. There's a time and a place for the goofiest, silliest, smuttiest romance you've ever met. And there's a time and a place for a well-written romantasy. And I feel like, again, amongst fans, there's kind of this impression that the writing itself isn't that important or shouldn't be that important. And sometimes it makes me a little bit angry. Romantasy especially, fantasy romance, is a genre that is sometimes very hard to find a well-written book in. And I mean well written. Don't you comment ACOTAR. I liked ACOTAR, okay? But objectively speaking, I'm not gonna go there. Anyway, when I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night, I just was like, oh my God, thank you, finally. Like, it's well written, it's good. You don't have to suspend your disbelief. There's no point in it where you're like, well, that was stupid as fuck, but I'm just gonna keep reading and ignore it. And the sex isn't weird, and nobody says anything about watery bowels. And people have wings, but they don't get involved in the sex scenes, if my memory serves. It's everything I want in a romantasy and more. I feel like it's what I wanted ACOTAR to be, and it's not even that I don't like ACOTAR, okay? I liked ACOTAR, but I thought it was fine. It did not become like my new favorite book series. The Serpent and the Wings of Night, like, took what I thought ACOTAR was going to take in my mind and my heart in the romantasy genre. I thought ACOTAR was gonna be like, woo, yay, peak, and then I read it and I was like, that was fine. And this is like peak. I'm happy I went through this because I got caught up reading other things for the channel, but I meant to make my way through all of Carissa Broadbent's books, and I'm gonna go back to that in the new year. I'm gonna read more of her stuff because I really liked both of the books in this. It's kind of like a duology, this little series, but she said it's all gonna connect together. Like, some of her series are kind of gonna all connect together in a fun way. So I'm looking forward to that. I really, really liked it. And I could not recommend this enough if you are a romantasy lover. And finally, top of the list, number 1 slot, believe it or not, is a book that I just finished like 2 days ago, and that's a novel love story. This book surprised the absolute shit out of me. I put this on one of my most anticipated reads of 2024, and then I read almost none of the books on that list, but I did read this one because the premise of it excited me so much. This is a book about a woman who loves a romance novel series that takes place in a fictional small town, and then she's supposed to go on this trip with her friends, but they all kind of bail on her. So she ends up deciding, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go by myself. And while she's on the road, she gets lost and she ends up in the fictional small town of the romance books that she loves so, so much. Starts to have a little bit of a romance herself with one of the people in the town. I thought this would be cute. I thought this would be fun. I liked that it had a unique premise. And I thought, you know, what a nice little goofy read as a palate cleanser after finishing Wind and Truth, which was a behemoth on the brain, let me tell you. This book made me cry so fucking hard. Oh my God. I was not expecting it. I almost don't even want to like say what I liked about it because I don't want to spoil anything. Like, I went into it thinking it was going to be like a goofy, silly, fun romance. This is probably the best romance do I want to say that? No. Outlander's still number 1. I'm sorry. There's nothing like Outlander out there. Outlander, a novel love story. That is how I feel. If you're a romance lover, you will love this. It was so, so good. I cannot sing its praises enough. It's so, so, so good. So many of you comment, I'm never going to read any of these books, but I like to see you talk about them. I'm not even going to give you the opportunity to find out what I liked about it by giving you a section with spoilers or anything. I would love to go on and on and on about how much I love this book, but I'm forcing you to read it. because I loved it that much. You have to go read it if you want to find out why I loved it. So that is my ranking of all of the books I read this year. Now let's get into the honorable mentions. These are both books that I just didn't feel right putting into a ranking because it just didn't match the vibe. The first is On Palestine. I read this for educational purposes. I read this to learn a lot more about the global conflict going on right now. I thought it was really good. I thought it was very educational. I'll admit to you that I don't really know enough about the conflict at large to tell you if it's a good representation of it. Like, I read it to learn about the conflict, so I can't judge the merits of the information I was given in it, except to say that I currently haven't found anything to contradict it. Like, nothing has come along to make me think like, oh, that's not what I read in that book. So I think the information is fairly accurate. It's not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination, but mostly because of the severity of the topic. It's an intense and awful situation, and something we have to keep pushing about and keep fighting about. And so you can kind of see why I didn't feel right like putting it into the rankings. It just didn't really feel like a book that you like rank against all the other goofy, smutty romance you read in the year. I think it's especially good to talk about now. I feel like there's some fatigue on the subject a little bit in society. I feel like it's so sad and it's so awful and it's been happening for so long. And in a way, I feel like people are starting to dissociate, especially with the results of the recent election. And we can't do that. We can't do that. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep fighting. Right now, I know it doesn't feel like we're making progress, but when you think about how the country thought about this conflict a year ago and who they thought was maybe in the right versus how it sort of seems like the whole country feels about it now, think about what difference a year has made. And think about how many people are defending the Palestinians now as opposed to were a year ago. It does make a difference. Talking about it has made a difference in the perception within the country. And as defeated as we may feel right now, if enough people are like, yo, no more weapons to Israel or I'm not voting for you, they will listen eventually. So just keep pushing, just keep fighting. Try not to feel defeated. I don't really know how to close out this subject gracefully, so I'm just gonna move on now. The other book that I read that I didn't rank. Why am I like nervous? I know I am nervous. I know why this is hard for me to explain, because essentially what it boils down to is the book I'm about to talk about is a religious book. The reason it's weird for me to talk about is because I don't know how to very easily tell you guys where I stand on religion as a whole, because I don't really know how I feel. I was raised Catholic. I have a lot of feelings about that, and I'm exploring those feelings and specifically the conflict with how I picture God with some of the actions of the church historically and the impact of like Christianity as a whole on the world, as opposed to the actual like teachings and the way that I personally have found peace in religion in my own life. And it leads to this tangle and mess of emotions that I don't really know how to sift through. But I am slowly sifting through it in the form of writing a book. My book covers a lot of religious themes, and I don't know how I feel because I haven't finished the book, and admittedly, when I finish the book, I probably still won't know how I feel exactly, but that's a lot of what I'm exploring is like that mess. So in the past, I have actually read a lot of religious text, and specifically like Christian religious text. This year, I didn't do as much of that because honestly, I've kind of fell off on my writing. Usually my whole writing process involves reading a little bit, and that's when I was kind of reading books like that, as like to inform some of what I was thinking about and some of what I was writing about. But this year, not as much. I only read one. It was called With All Her Mind. I'm not gonna recommend it or not recommend it, but at the same time, I would feel weird like leaving it out. I felt weird with every option I had. Tell you that I read it, recommend it, not tell you that I read it, and not, I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I don't know how to talk about it because I don't know how I feel. It gave me stuff to think about, and those thoughts gave me feelings, and the feelings made it into my writing. And that's it. That is gonna be it for me today, you guys. Those are all the books I read this year. What was your favorite book you read this year? What was your least favorite book you read this year? Comment down below and let me know. I'm super curious. I'm looking for recommendations, so drop them down below. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!